On Christmas Day, my daughter said, "Wait at the airport, Dad. I'll be there soon to pick you up." But I waited for over 12 hours, called her 35 times, and no one came. Instead of a warm embrace, I received cold betrayal from my own flesh and blood, who prefers inheritance to her father. When I finally got to their house by taxi, I was shocked by what I saw. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are listening in the comments. The gift bags cut into my fingers as I stepped off the plane at Denver International. December 25th, 2:47 p.m., Christmas Day. The terminal buzzed with families embracing, children squealing with delight, couples kissing under plastic mistletoe hanging from departure signs. I shifted the weight of my packages. 6 bags total, each one carefully selected over weeks of planning. The jewelry box for Victoria contained her grandmother's emerald necklace, Sarah's favorite piece that I'd saved specifically for this moment. For little Emma, the American Girl doll she'd mentioned during our last video call. The cashmere scarf for Martin came from that boutique Sarah used to love. A family beside me erupted in laughter as a toddler launched himself into his grandfather's arms. The old man spun him around while the parents snapped photos. My chest tightened with anticipation. Soon that would be me with Emma. I pulled out my phone and dialed Victoria's number. "Dad?" Her voice came through flat, distracted. "Victoria, I'm here, sweetheart. Just landed. The flight was smooth and... Oh, right. Dad, we're running a bit late. Wait for us at the exit. We'll be there soon." Something in her tone made me pause. No excitement, no warmth, just obligation. "Is everything all right? You sound... Everything's fine. We're just dealing with some last-minute Christmas chaos. You know how it is." I didn't know how it was. Sarah and I had always been ready early for family arrivals. We'd circle the airport pickup lane 3 times rather than make someone wait. "Should I grab the bags and head to baggage claim, or do you want me to..." "Dad, I really have to go. Just wait at the exit doors. We'll figure it out when we get there." The line went dead. I stared at my phone for a moment. Around me, families continued their joyful reunions. A woman my age hugged her son so tightly I thought she might crack his ribs. He didn't seem to mind. The baggage carousel clanked to life. I collected my suitcase and wheeled everything toward the exit doors. The gift bags swayed against my legs with each step. Outside, snow fell in gentle flakes, coating the pickup lanes in pristine white. I found a spot near the automatic doors where families typically gathered. Other travelers streamed past me toward waiting cars. Engines hummed, doors slammed, tires crunched through slush. I checked my watch. 3:05 p.m. A young father hurried past, carrying a car seat with one hand and pulling a suitcase with the other. His wife followed, chatting excitedly about Christmas dinner plans. Their voices faded as they disappeared into the parking structure. My phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. "Still running late. Be patient. Be patient. Not sorry or will hurry or can't wait to see you. Just be patient." I arranged my gift bags around my feet like colorful sentries. The jewelry box sat on top of Victoria's pile. Inside that small velvet container was 3 generations of Baker family history. Sarah's mother had worn those emeralds to her wedding. Sarah had worn them to ours. Now they would go to Victoria. Another family walked past. The teenage daughter rolled her eyes at something her mother said, but she was smiling, really smiling, the kind of smile that said she was exactly where she wanted to be. I pulled up Victoria's contact again. My thumb hovered over her name. Maybe I should call Martin instead. He always answered quickly. But something held me back. Victoria had said they were dealing with Christmas chaos. Maybe I was overthinking this. The automatic doors whooshed open and closed as travelers came and went. Each time I looked up, hopefully. Each time, strangers passed by without a glance. 3:15 p.m., I shifted my weight from one foot to the other. The excitement I'd felt stepping off the plane was transforming into something else. Something uncomfortable. Like wearing a sweater that had shrunk in the wash. It still fit, but nothing felt quite right. A security guard walked by, nodding politely. I nodded back and checked my phone again. No new messages, no missed calls. Just the lock screen photo I'd taken of Emma last Christmas. her gap-toothed grin bright under our old Christmas tree. This Christmas tree would be different. Victoria had sent photos of their new house, all white and silver decorations, perfectly coordinated, professional looking, nothing like the chaotic, homemade ornament explosion Sarah and I had always preferred. But that was fine. People changed, grew up, developed their own traditions. I just wished Victoria had sounded happier to hear from me. The snow outside was getting heavier. I could see it swirling under the streetlights that had automatically clicked on, despite the afternoon hour. December in Denver. I'd forgotten how dark it got, how quickly. My watch showed 3:20 p.m. now, still early. Traffic could be terrible on Christmas Day. I remembered that from when Victoria was little, and we'd driven to my mother's house. All those families on the road at once, everyone running a little behind schedule. I pulled my coat tighter and settled in to wait. Moving away from the main flow of travelers, I spotted a row of cushioned chairs near the large windows. Perfect. I wheeled my suitcase over and carefully arranged the gift bags around my feet like a colorful fortress. Each bag had been selected specifically, the deep burgundy one for Victoria, forest green for Martin, cheerful red and gold for little Emma. But the real surprises weren't in these bags. I reached into my inner coat pocket and felt the crisp edges of 3 envelopes. Bank of Colorado letterhead, each one sealed with the kind of weight that meant serious business. Inside Victoria's envelope, a certified check for $50,000. Martin's contained the same amount. The third envelope, marked Education Fund, held $75,000 designated for the grandchildren's futures, $175,000. Christmas morning generosity. After Margaret died, selling Baker's Auto Parts had been the hardest decision of my life. 30 years building that business from a single garage to 12 thriving locations across Colorado. But walking through those familiar aisles without her, laugh echoing from the office, watching employees who remembered when she brought homemade cookies every Friday, it became unbearable. The $2.8 million sale had given me options: conservative investments, financial security, most importantly, the ability to show my family exactly how much they meant to me. I pulled out Victoria's envelope and ran my thumb along the sealed edge. $50,000 represented months of careful planning. Not enough to seem excessive or create dependency, but substantial enough to make a real difference. Maybe she could finally quit worrying about household expenses. Maybe she and Martin could take that European vacation they had mentioned last year. A young couple walked past, the woman clutching a baby carrier, while her partner juggled 2 toddlers and a diaper bag. They moved with the frantic energy of new parents trying to manage Christmas travel. I remembered those days, Victoria at 18 months, screaming through her first flight, while Margaret and I took turns walking the airplane aisle. Now Victoria was the parent, the responsible adult, the one dealing with Christmas chaos and running late because life with children meant nothing ever went according to schedule. I checked my watch again. 3:35 p.m. Still reasonable. The education fund had been Margaret's idea, actually. She'd mentioned it during one of our last conversations before the cancer took her voice entirely. Promise me you'll make sure Emma and any other grandchildren get proper educations. College keeps getting more expensive. I'd held her hand and promised. This check fulfilled that promise, and then some. Settling deeper into the chair, I organized the gift bags by recipient. Victoria's burgundy bag contained the emerald necklace that had belonged to Margaret's grandmother. 3 generations of Baker women had worn those stones. Now they would grace Victoria's throat, connecting her to a legacy of strong women who'd built something meaningful. My phone buzzed. Another traveler calling someone, their voice carrying across the waiting area. Stuck in traffic, but we'll be there soon, I promise. Soon. That's what Victoria had said. Soon. I adjusted the gift bags so the ribbons wouldn't get crushed and leaned back to watch the steady stream of families reuniting near the exit doors. Each embrace reminded me why this wait was worthwhile. The checks in my pocket represented more than money. They were proof of a father's love, carefully planned and precisely executed. When Victoria saw that $50,000 amount, her eyes would widen the same way they had when she was 7 and found the bicycle she'd been hoping for under our Christmas tree. When Martin realized his father-in-law had thought to include him equally, his respect for me would deepen. And when I explained the education fund, they'd both understand that I wasn't just thinking about today. I was investing in their children's futures, worth every minute of waiting. By 4:30, the cushioned chair had become uncomfortable. My back ached from sitting in the same position, and the gift bags seemed heavier each time I adjusted them. The airport entrance doors swooshed open and closed with mechanical precision, bringing blasts of December air that cut through my wool coat. I checked my watch. 4:47 p.m. Time to find somewhere warmer. Gathering my belongings required strategic planning now. The suitcase handle in my right hand, 3 gift bags looped over my left arm, the remaining bags clutched in my left fist. I shuffled toward the main terminal area, away from those treacherous entrance doors that leaked cold air with every opening. The coffee shop near Gate B15 offered a small table and chairs that looked marginally more comfortable. I arranged my colorful fortress of gift bags around the table legs and ordered a large coffee from a tired-looking barista who wished me Merry Christmas with practiced efficiency. 5:15 p.m. The coffee warmed my hands but couldn't shake the chill that had settled into my bones. Other travelers moved past my table with purpose. Families heading to gates, couples embracing after successful pickups, business travelers checking phones while walking briskly toward exits. Everyone except me seemed to know exactly where they were going and when they'd get there. I pulled out my phone and stared at Victoria's contact information. No missed calls. No new messages since that brief "be patient" text hours ago. Traffic couldn't be this terrible. Not for 3 hours. By 6 o'clock, hunger gnawed at my stomach. I purchased an overpriced sandwich from the coffee shop and ate mechanically while watching the entrance area through the windows. Each time a family approached, my pulse quickened. Each time strangers walked past, disappointment settled deeper into my chest. 6:45 p.m. Dinner time on Christmas Day. Families across the country were gathering around tables, sharing stories, opening presents. I was sitting alone in an airport coffee shop, guarding gift bags like a department store Santa who'd lost his way. The rational part of my mind offered explanations. Holiday traffic, last-minute Christmas preparations. Maybe Emma had gotten sick and they'd needed to find a babysitter. Victoria had always been dramatic about minor inconveniences, but the nagging voice in the back of my head whispered different possibilities. 7:30 p.m. The coffee shop began closing down. Chairs stacked on tables. The barista wiping counters with obvious exhaustion. Time to move again. I relocated to a seating area near the main information desk, closer to the airport's central heating system. My expensive leather shoes had developed uncomfortable pressure points from standing and walking with heavy bags. The emerald necklace box pressed against my ribs through my coat pocket, a reminder of the love I'd brought to share. 8:15 p.m., nearly 6 hours since landing. This was beyond holiday traffic, beyond any reasonable delay. I found a quiet corner near the restrooms and dialed Victoria's number with fingers that felt stiff from cold. The phone rang twice before her voice came through, sharp and distracted. "Dad, what is it now?" Now? As if I'd been calling constantly instead of waiting patiently for hours. "Honey, I've been waiting quite a while. How much longer do you think?" "Just 15 more minutes maximum, Dad. And don't you dare call a taxi." The line went dead before I could ask why a taxi would be problematic. I stared at my phone. 15 minutes maximum. After 6 hours, she could promise 15 minutes with such certainty? And why the emphatic prohibition against calling a taxi? If they were truly delayed by traffic or emergency, wouldn't a taxi be the logical solution? The questions multiplied in my mind like cracks in ice. Heat. That's what I needed. The cafeteria near Terminal A glowed with warm light and the promise of hot food. I dragged my collection of bags across the polished floor, each step echoing my exhaustion. 9 hours since landing. 9 hours of Victoria's empty promises. A small table near the windows offered refuge. I arranged the gift bags around the table legs like colorful guards, each one representing thousands of dollars of thoughtful preparation. The emerald necklace, the education fund, the $50,000 checks that were supposed to bring joy, not humiliation. Can I get you anything? The cafeteria worker looked at me with practiced kindness. Coffee, black, and whatever soup you have. The tomato soup arrived lukewarm, but I wrapped my cold hands around the bowl anyway. Steam rose from the surface, fogging my glasses. Through the condensation, my reflection looked like a stranger. Tired, aged, foolish. $200,000. That's what Victoria's education had cost me. The number surfaced from the depths of my memory with crystalline clarity. 6 years of private college, graduate school, sorority fees, study abroad in Italy. I'd worked overtime at Baker's Auto Parts every weekend for 4 years straight to pay those bills. While other fathers my age played golf or took weekend trips with their wives, I was in the shop, ordering inventory, balancing books, pushing every dollar toward Victoria's future. Margaret had warned me, "You're spoiling her, Roger. She never thanks you for anything." But I'd dismissed her concerns. Victoria was ambitious, driven. She deserved every opportunity money could provide. The soup grew cold as memories flooded back. Victoria's graduation day, when I'd driven 8 hours to attend her ceremony. She'd spent 15 minutes with me before rushing off to celebrate with friends. No mention of the sacrifices, no acknowledgement of the extra shifts I'd worked to pay for that diploma. Her wedding, where she'd seemed embarrassed by my simple speech about hard work and family values. Martin's parents, educated, sophisticated, had delivered eloquent toasts about literature and philosophy. I'd talked about the dignity of honest labor. Christmas mornings when she'd opened expensive gifts with casual expectation, as if my generosity was her birthright rather than my choice. Each memory stung more than the last. I pulled out my wallet and stared at the 3 sealed envelopes inside. $175,000 in certified checks. More money than most people saw in years, casually dismissed with "be patient" and "don't call a taxi." The taxi prohibition still puzzled me. If they were genuinely delayed, why forbid the obvious solution? Unless they weren't delayed at all. The thought hit me like cold air through an opening door. What if Victoria simply didn't want to pick me up? What if this was intentional neglect, designed to teach me some lesson about convenience or expectations? I thought about the BMW I'd helped her buy for college, the apartment deposit I'd covered, the credit card bills I'd paid without question. Every gesture of love translated into financial support, every expression of care measured in dollars. Had I raised a daughter or created a creditor? A young family sat at the table across from me, sharing French fries while their toddler colored with crayons. The parents took turns wiping the child's fingers, laughing at his artistic efforts. Simple moments, free moments, the kind of Christmas memory that didn't require checkbooks or sacrifice. When had my relationship with Victoria become purely transactional? My phone sat silent on the table. No calls, no texts, no explanation for why her 15 minutes maximum had stretched past the 30-minute mark. I checked my expensive watch, the one Victoria had given me 3 Christmases ago, probably bought with money I'd transferred to her account. 9:05 p.m., dinner time on Christmas Day. Families across America were gathered around tables, sharing stories and gratitude. I was sitting alone in an airport cafeteria, surrounded by gift bags that suddenly felt like evidence of my own foolishness. Something was wrong. The realization hit me as I stared at my phone showing 9:15 p.m. Not just delayed, not just inconsiderate, wrong. I scrolled through my call log. 31 attempts to Victoria's number, 4 tries to Martin's phone, all unanswered, all ignored. No returned calls, no explanatory texts, just silence stretching across 7 hours of Christmas Day. My hands shook as I dialed Victoria's number again, straight to voicemail. "Victoria, it's Dad. Call 32, please, honey. I'm really worried now. It's past 9 o'clock on Christmas night. Just let me know you're okay." Call 33 to Martin. Voicemail. "Martin, it's Roger. Where is everyone? I've been waiting at the airport for 7 hours. Please call me back." Call 34 to Victoria. Ring, ring, ring. Voicemail. Call 35. My fingers, stiff from cold and exhaustion, fumbled with the numbers. Voicemail again. 35 calls. No accidents made people ignore 35 calls. No traffic delayed families for 7 hours without communication. No reasonable explanation existed for this level of silence, unless they were deliberately avoiding me. The thought struck like ice water in my veins. I pushed it away immediately. No. Victoria might be selfish and ungrateful, but she wouldn't be cruel. Not this cruel. But what if something had happened? What if they were in a hospital, somewhere, injured, unable to call? What if Emma was sick and they were too focused on caring for her to answer phones? I gathered my gift bags with trembling hands. Time for action. Time to find out what was happening. The main exit area buzzed with late-night activity. Travelers arriving from delayed flights, families completing Christmas reunions, taxi drivers holding signs, waiting for their fares. I found the ride pickup zone and pulled out my phone again. Denver Cab Company, the dispatcher answered with practiced efficiency. I need a taxi to Cherry Hills Village from Denver International Airport. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. Which terminal? Main terminal. Door 507 East. Address in Cherry Hills? I recited Victoria's address. The house I'd helped with the down payment. Another $20,000 I'd provided without question or thanks. Fare will be about $65. Taxi should be there in 12 minutes. 12 minutes. After 7 hours, 12 more minutes felt like nothing. I positioned myself near the designated pickup spot and checked my phone one more time. No missed calls, no texts, no explanations. 9:25 p.m. Christmas dinner was long over. Families across America were settling into evening routines, watching movies, playing board games, children falling asleep surrounded by torn wrapping paper and new toys. I was standing outside an airport in December cold, carrying gift bags worth thousands of dollars, waiting for a taxi to take me to a house where my own family might be deliberately avoiding me. The yellow cab pulled up at 9:27 p.m. exactly. The driver, a middle-aged man with kind eyes, helped me load my bags into the trunk. "Christmas visit?" he asked as I settled into the back seat. "Something like that." The taxi pulled away from the airport pickup area, and I watched the terminal lights grow smaller in the rear window. 7 hours of waiting, 35 unanswered calls, and $175,000 in Christmas gifts. Either my family was in serious trouble, or I was about to discover just how little I meant to the people I'd sacrificed everything for. The taxi's heater warmed my face, but couldn't touch the cold that had settled in my chest. 12 hours, 7 hours of waiting, 35 unanswered calls. The numbers repeated in my mind like a broken record as James navigated through Denver's Christmas night traffic. "Long day at the airport?" he asked, glancing at me in the rearview mirror. 12 hours, waiting for family to pick me up." 12 hours? His eyebrows rose. "Christmas travel is rough. Family reunion?" "Something like that. My daughter and her husband." The words felt strange in my mouth. Family reunion implied joy, anticipation, warmth. What word described this? "They must be excited to see you," James said with genuine kindness. I stared out the window at houses decorated with Christmas lights. Behind those glowing windows, I imagined families gathered around trees, sharing stories, grandparents holding sleepy children, normal families. "I hope so," I finally answered, though hope felt increasingly fragile. The gift bags slid slightly as James took a turn. I steadied them automatically, my hands brushing against the expensive wrapping paper. Each bag represented hours of careful selection, thousands of dollars of thoughtful generosity. The emerald necklace alone was worth more than most people's monthly salary. When had Victoria last bought me a gift that wasn't perfunctory? When had she last called just to talk, without needing money or favors? Christmas 2 years ago surfaced in my memory with uncomfortable clarity. I'd driven 4 hours to spend the holiday with Victoria's family. She'd been distracted throughout dinner, constantly checking her phone, responding to texts, while I talked about the business I was considering selling. When I'd given her the expensive pearl earrings, Margaret's suggestion from a year before she died, Victoria had thanked me politely and immediately returned to her phone. I'd made excuses then. New mother, busy with Emma, overwhelmed by holiday hosting, but now, staring at these gift bags in James's taxi, I remembered the sting of feeling invisible in my own daughter's house. "You from Denver originally?" James asked, breaking my uncomfortable reverie. "Built a business here, auto parts, 30 years. "That's impressive. Family business?" "Was supposed to be." The admission slipped out before I could stop it. Daughter went to college instead. Graduate school. Better opportunities than working with old dad. James nodded thoughtfully. Education's important, but family business, that's special too. My son works with me part-time, helps with dispatch. The casual way he mentioned his son, present tense, active involvement, highlighted everything missing from my relationship with Victoria. When was the last time she'd shown interest in Baker's auto parts? Even when I was considering the sale, her questions focused on the money, not the legacy I was ending. 10:15 p.m. We passed through a neighborhood where every house blazed with lights. A family walked along the sidewalk, parents holding a small child's hands between them, their laughter carrying through the taxi's windows. Beautiful night for Christmas, James observed. Beautiful for some. For others, it was turning into the loneliest night of the year. My phone remained silent on my lap. No missed calls. No apologetic texts. No explanation for 7 hours of deliberate silence. Because that's what it was now, wasn't it? Deliberate. 35 calls don't get ignored by accident. Emergency rooms have phones. If they were dealing with a crisis, someone would have answered. Someone would have called back. Someone would have cared enough to ease a father's worry. The uncomfortable truth settled over me like a weight. Victoria was ignoring me on Christmas Day, after I'd flown across the country with gifts worth more than many people's annual income. Almost there, James announced as we turned onto Victoria Street. What's the house number? I gave him the address. The house I'd helped buy, in the neighborhood I'd made possible, for the daughter who couldn't be bothered to return her father's calls. James pulled into the driveway behind a silver Mercedes and a blue BMW. 2 cars, both with Colorado plates, both clearly functional. Looks like you've got a full house, James observed cheerfully. Through the taxi window, I stared at Victoria's living room. Golden light spilled across perfectly manicured snow. Inside, I could see figures moving around a dinner table. Laughter, wine glasses, the unmistakable warmth of a family Christmas celebration. Without me. Sir, that'll be $68.50? I handed James $75 with trembling fingers. Keep the change. You sure you're okay? You look... I'm fine. The lie came automatically. James helped me unload my bags from the trunk. 6 gift bags and a suitcase. All evidence of a father's careful preparation for a reunion that was never intended to happen. As his taxi pulled away, I stood alone on the sidewalk, cold air cutting through my coat. 35 unanswered calls, 13 hours of waiting, and here they were, celebrating Christmas exactly as they'd planned to all along. I approached the living room window carefully. Roy sat at the head of the table, gesturing animatedly while telling some story. Lindsay laughed, refilling wine glasses. Martin nodded and smiled. Victoria, my daughter, the recipient of $200,000 in educational investment, looked completely relaxed, completely content. None of them looked worried. None of them looked like people expecting a missing family member. My legs felt weak. I set down the heaviest gift bag and steadied myself against the porch railing, the emerald necklace box pressed against my ribs, a sharp reminder of misplaced love. The front door had a cheerful wreath. Victoria had always loved Christmas decorations. I'd bought her first Christmas tree when she was 7, helped her string lights every year until she moved out for college. Now she had a beautiful home, professional decorations, and a family celebration designed specifically to exclude her father. I rang the doorbell. Footsteps approached. The door opened, and Victoria's face appeared in the gap, flushed from wine, relaxed from dinner, completely unprepared for what she saw. Her expression shifted through a series of emotions in seconds. Surprise, confusion, then something close to panic. "Dad!" Her voice pitched too high. "You're here! I'm so sorry. We had a flat tire on the way to get you." I stepped forward with my bags. Victoria had no choice but to move aside. "Flat tire?" I gestured toward the driveway. "I see 2 cars out there. I completely forgot to call you back. My phone died and then Martin's car broke down." The words tumbled out rapidly, each excuse contradicting the last. I entered the warm house, my bags heavy in my hands. The dining room was visible from the entryway. Empty plates, wine glasses, the ruins of a Christmas feast. The table was set for exactly the number of people currently present. No empty chair, no place setting waiting for me. "Roger!" Roy stood up from the table, genuine surprise and warmth in his voice. We had no idea you were still at the airport. Lindsay rose too, her face showing real concern. You poor thing, you must be exhausted. 35 calls, Victoria. I set down my bags carefully, precisely. 35. The room fell silent. Martin shifted uncomfortably in his chair, unable to meet my eyes. We were just about to leave to pick you up, Victoria continued desperately. Weren't we, Martin? Martin mumbled something about technical problems, but his face told the truth. He looked like a man caught in his wife's web of lies. I see you managed to have Christmas dinner without me, I said quietly. Roy looked confused. Victoria said you weren't arriving until tomorrow morning, that your flight was delayed. Silence stretched across the dining room like a taut wire. Victoria's face drained of color. Martin suddenly found his wineglass fascinating. Tomorrow morning? I repeated slowly. Lindsay moved quickly to break the tension. Roger, you poor thing, you must be absolutely starving. Let me get you a fresh plate. She bustled toward the kitchen, maternal instincts overriding the awkwardness. Roy gestured to an empty chair beside him, his judicial mind clearly processing the discrepancy between what Victoria had told them and what was actually happening. Please sit, Roy said warmly. We'll sort this all out, but first you need food and rest. I settled into the chair, carefully placing my gift bags beside me. The expensive burgundy bag containing Victoria's emerald necklace leaned against my leg, a reminder of misplaced generosity. Victoria launched into nervous chatter. Dad's fine, aren't you, Dad? Just a little mix-up with the cars. You know how crazy Christmas travel can be. 35 phone calls, I said quietly, cutting through her babble. Martin's fork clattered against his plate. Lindsay returned with a warmed plate of turkey and fixings, setting it before me with gentle efficiency. You must tell us about your flight, Roger. Was there terrible weather? These holiday delays can be absolutely dreadful. No weather issues, I replied, accepting the coffee she poured. Clear skies all day? Roy leaned forward slightly. So your flight was on time? 2:47 this afternoon. I took a careful bite of turkey, though my appetite had vanished hours ago. Landed exactly when scheduled. The mathematics of deception hung in the air. If my flight had landed at 2:47 p.m. and it was now past 11 p.m., that meant 8 hours, Roy said, his voice taking on the tone of a man accustomed to examining facts. You've been here for 8 hours? Victoria jumped in frantically. No, he just got here. The cars were... I waited at the airport, I said simply. Called Victoria multiple times. No one answered. Lindsay's hand flew to her heart. Oh my goodness, you were at the airport alone for 8 hours? On Christmas Day? Martin mumbled something about technical difficulties, but his voice lacked conviction. He couldn't meet anyone's eyes, especially not his father's. Roger, Roy said carefully, if you needed transportation, you should have called us. We would have come immediately. I didn't have your number memorized, and I kept expecting... I glanced at Victoria, who was gripping her wineglass so tightly her knuckles showed white. I kept expecting someone to answer when I called. Lindsay reached over and patted my hand. You poor dear. 8 hours, and we had no idea. We thought you weren't coming until tomorrow morning. That's what Victoria told you, I confirmed. The room fell silent again. Victoria's nervous laughter filled the void like fingernails on a chalkboard. Well, he's here now, she said brightly. That's what matters. Right, Martin? Martin nodded without enthusiasm, still avoiding eye contact with everyone at the table. Roy's expression had shifted. As a retired federal judge, he'd spent decades listening to testimony, weighing evidence, detecting inconsistencies. His daughter-in-law had told him Roger wasn't arriving until tomorrow. Yet here Roger was, having waited 8 hours for pickup that never came. Victoria, Roy said slowly, perhaps you could explain the confusion about Roger's arrival time. I must have misunderstood. Victoria's voice pitched higher. You know how it is with travel plans. Things change. But Roy wasn't a man easily satisfied by vague explanations. His eyes moved from Victoria to Martin to me, piecing together a picture that clearly disturbed him. I continued eating mechanically, each bite tasteless. The gift bags sat beside my chair like accusers, filled with expressions of love for people who had deliberately abandoned me. Excuse me, I said quietly, setting down my fork. I need to use the restroom. Lindsay immediately showed concern. Of course, dear. Down the hall. First door on the right. I walked slowly down the dimly lit corridor, my footsteps muffled by the thick carpet I'd helped Victoria afford. The bathroom door stood slightly ajar, but voices from the kitchen stopped me cold. Victoria and Martin, speaking in hushed tones, thinking they were alone. "I really wish he hadn't shown up tonight," Martin said, his voice carrying the exasperation he'd hidden all evening. My hand froze on the bathroom door handle. "He always embarrasses us in front of your parents," Victoria replied, her tone casual, dismissive. "Those silly stories about building his business from nothing, like he's some kind of mogul." The words hit like physical blows. Silly stories? I'd built Baker's Auto Parts from a $5,000 loan into a multi-million-dollar empire. "Your dad just doesn't understand how to behave around people like my parents," Martin continued. "The way he talks, his mannerisms, it's awkward. People like Roy and Lindsay, people who had always treated me with respect and warmth. I was hoping if we ignored him long enough today, he'd just go back home," Victoria said, and I heard the clink of dishes being loaded into a dishwasher. Maybe get the hint that we don't really want Ahinim here. 13 hours. 13 hours of deliberate cruelty designed to make me leave. My legs felt weak. I gripped the door frame for support, forcing myself to keep listening. "The way he talks about his little auto parts stores like he built Microsoft or something," Victoria laughed softly. "It's just embarrassing. Little auto parts stores, 12 locations, 30 years of 16-hour days, missed vacations, sacrificed comfort, all so she could have every opportunity I'd never had. Maybe next Christmas we just don't invite him at all," Martin suggested. "Tell him we're going out of town or something." "Perfect," Victoria agreed readily. "Your parents are so sophisticated, so educated. Dad means well, but he's just not their type. All that working-class charm might have been fine when I was younger, but now, not their type." Roy, who'd spent 30 minutes at last year's Christmas asking thoughtful questions about auto parts distribution. Lindsay, who'd listened with genuine interest to my stories about customer service philosophy. My breathing became shallow, sharp. Each word carved deeper into what remained of my paternal pride. "At least the money situation will be settled soon," Victoria said, her voice taking on a more practical tone. "Once well, the inheritance. Then we won't have to pretend to care about these awkward family gatherings." The inheritance. They were waiting for me to die. I stood in that hallway, surrounded by the warmth of a house I'd helped purchase, listening to my daughter discuss my death like a business transaction. The emerald necklace in my coat pocket, 3 generations of family history, suddenly felt like a joke. An expensive joke on a foolish old man. Something inside me crystallized, hardened. The hurt father began transforming into something else entirely. I reached into my coat and felt the sealed envelopes containing $175,000. Money I'd planned to give freely, joyfully, out of love. Now it would serve a different purpose. I straightened my shoulders and touched my wallet, feeling the outline of the checks inside. Victoria wanted my money. She could have it, but she was going to earn every devastating penny. My footsteps echoed deliberately as I walked back toward the kitchen. Victoria and Martin were still there, loading the dishwasher, their voices now lowered to normal conversation. They looked up when I entered. Victoria's face showed casual inquiry, the expression of someone expecting her father to return from the bathroom, not someone about to face devastating consequences. "I heard every single word you just said." The dish in Victoria's hand slipped. It would have shattered against the floor if Martin hadn't caught it reflexively. "Dad?" Victoria's voice came out small, uncertain. 13 hours in an airport," I continued, my voice controlled but rising. 35 unanswered phone calls. "And you two were in here discussing how I embarrass you in front of Roy and Lindsay?" Victoria's face drained of color. Martin stepped backward, bumping against the counter. "Dad, you don't understand. We weren't talking about you that way." Victoria's words tumbled out in a rush. "You took it out of context." "Context?" I stepped closer, blocking their path to the dining room. "You said you wished I hadn't shown up tonight. You called my business stories silly. You planned to never invite me to Christmas again." "We never meant to hurt you." Victoria's voice pitched higher, more desperate. "The car really did break down." I gestured toward the window facing the driveway. 2 cars out there, both working perfectly. Both available to pick up your father who waited 13 hours in an airport on Christmas Day. Martin cleared his throat nervously. "Maybe we didn't express ourselves well. It's been a long day for everyone." "Express yourselves well?" My voice carried 24 years of discovered disappointment. You laughed about my little auto parts stores. 12 locations, Martin. 30 years of 16-hour days, so Victoria could have everything I never did. You're overreacting, Victoria said, but her voice cracked. We love you. You know that. Love me. The word felt bitter in my mouth. You told Martin that once I die and you get the inheritance, you won't have to pretend to care about these awkward family gatherings anymore. The kitchen fell silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of Roy and Lindsay's conversation from the dining room. Victoria stared at me with wide eyes. How did you weren't standing in the hallway? Yes, I was. Listening to my daughter discuss my death like a business transaction? Absolutely. Martin shuffled uncomfortably, looking everywhere except at my face. Your dad misunderstood what we meant, Victoria. We should all calm down and talk rationally. Misunderstood? I pulled out my phone and showed them the call log. 35 attempts. Would you like me to explain how I misunderstood those too? Victoria tried a different approach, her voice taking on a pleading tone. Dad, we were just stressed. It's been such a crazy day, and we said things we didn't mean. Stressed? I cut her off. You were relaxed, comfortable, planning my exclusion from future holidays while I sat 12 miles away, wondering if you were dead in a car accident. The voices from the dining room grew quieter. Roy and Lindsay were probably wondering what was taking so long. People like Roy and Lindsay, I continued, repeating Victoria's exact phrase, too sophisticated for someone with working-class mannerisms. Is that what you told them about why I wasn't coming until tomorrow? Victoria's mouth opened and closed without sound. 24 years, I said quietly. 24 years of believing I raised a daughter who loved her father. Tonight, I discovered I raised someone who's ashamed of me. Footsteps approached from the dining room. Roy appeared in the doorway, followed closely by Lindsay, both wearing expressions of concern. Is everything all right? Roy asked, his judicial instincts clearly picking up on the tension. We heard voices. Roy, Lindsay, I said, my voice steady. Please, come in. There are some things you need to know. Victoria shot me a panicked look. Dad, please don't. Don't what? I cut her off. Don't tell them the truth? We moved into the living room. Roy and Lindsay settled onto the couch while Victoria and Martin remained standing, their discomfort obvious. I positioned myself near my gift bags, the colorful packages, now serving a very different purpose. Roy, you asked earlier about my flight being delayed, I began. Let me tell you what really happened. Victoria tried to interrupt. Dad, maybe we should discuss this privately. 13 hours, I continued, speaking directly to Roy and Lindsay. I spent 13 hours at Denver International Airport today. I called Victoria 35 times. No one answered. Lindsay's hand flew to her heart. 13 hours? On Christmas Day? But the car trouble, Roy began, then stopped as he processed the timeline. His legal mind was clearly working through the discrepancies. There was no car trouble, I said simply. 2 working vehicles were in the driveway all day. They deliberately ignored my calls because they hoped I would give up and go home. Roy's face darkened. This is completely unacceptable. How could you treat Roger this way? We made a mistake, Victoria said desperately. But we can explain. You made a mistake? Lindsay's voice carried the moral outrage of someone who'd spent decades teaching young people about ethics. You deliberately abandoned him at an airport on Christmas? I reached for the burgundy gift bag and pulled out the first envelope. I came here tonight with Christmas presents. Generous ones. The envelope felt substantial in my hands. Official bank letterhead, certified funds, careful planning. This check, I held up Victoria's envelope, is for $50,000. Martin's contains the same amount. The education fund for Emma totals $75,000. Victoria's face went pale. Dad, $175,000, I continued. Money I'd planned to give freely, out of love. Martin found his voice. We can fix this. Please don't make permanent decisions based on one bad night. I looked at Roy and Lindsay. While I waited at the airport, wondering if they were dead in an accident, they were here having Christmas dinner, and afterward I overheard them discussing how I embarrass them in front of you, how my business stories are silly, how I don't know how to behave around people like you. Roy stood up, his face flushed with anger. Roger, I am deeply ashamed of my son's behavior. This is unconscionable. The money will fund my European travels instead. I announced, placing the checks back in my coat. As for my will, which currently leaves my entire estate to Victoria, that's changing immediately. Victoria's composure finally cracked. You don't mean that. We're family. Family? I looked at her with cold eyes. Family doesn't abandon each other on Christmas. Family doesn't mock each other's life work. Family doesn't plan to exclude each other from future holidays. Lindsay reached over and touched my arm gently. Roger, we had no idea what you'd endured. This is heartbreaking. Nearly $3 million, I said, watching Victoria's face. That's what this night cost you. The immediate gifts, plus your inheritance, gone. The room fell silent, except for the ticking of Victoria's expensive clock. Purchased, no doubt, with money I'd provided over the years. The Ritz-Carlton. Denver gleamed under downtown streetlights as my taxi pulled up to the entrance. 1:30 in the morning, but I felt more awake than I had in years. The doorman helped me with my luggage. A single suitcase now, no gift bags weighing down my arms or my conscience. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light across marble floors as I approached the reception desk. Behind the polished counter, a young woman with kind eyes looked up from her computer. Welcome to the Ritz-Carlton, Denver. How may I assist you tonight? I need accommodations for an extended stay, I said, my voice carrying new confidence. At least a month, possibly longer. Certainly, sir, we have excellent long-term rates available. Her fingers moved efficiently across the keyboard. Business or leisure? Pure leisure. The words felt foreign, but wonderful. I'm starting an entirely new chapter in my life. She smiled genuinely. How exciting. Any specific amenities you'd like to ensure are included? I thought about Victoria's house, the house I'd helped buy, where I'd been treated like an inconvenience. The finest accommodations you have. Money is no object. 20 minutes later, I stood in a corner suite overlooking the city. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed Denver's lights stretching toward the mountains. I set my suitcase on the king-size bed and walked to the window, pressing my palm against the cool glass. For the first time in years, I was spending money on myself. The leather chair at the mahogany desk felt luxurious as I settled in with the hotel's complimentary laptop. European travel websites filled the screen. Italy's Tuscany region, France's Loire Valley, Spain's coastal cities. $125,000 would fund months of first-class accommodations, Michelin-starred restaurants, private tours of art galleries I dreamed of visiting. I pulled out my wallet and looked at the space where Victoria's and Martin's checks had been. Empty now, but not with loss, with possibility. Those envelopes were safely in my coat pocket, along with Emma's education fund, money that would create memories for me instead of financing ingratitude. My phone buzzed with a text message. Victoria, Dad, please call. We can work this out. I deleted it without responding. The hotel telephone sat beside a leather portfolio. I lifted the receiver and dialed the concierge. Good evening, Mr. Baker. How may we enhance your stay? I'd like to speak with someone about European travel packages tomorrow, the most comprehensive options available. Absolutely. I'll arrange for our premier travel consultant to meet with you at your convenience. Any particular regions of interest? All of them, I said, surprising myself with the freedom in that statement. I have the time and resources to see whatever interests me. After hanging up, I walked to the bathroom. Marble counters, heated floors, a soaking tub that could fit 2 people comfortably. The face in the mirror looked different than it had this morning. Tired, yes, but not defeated. The eyes held something new, satisfaction. I returned to the desk and opened the portfolio, finding elegant hotel stationery. With the hotel's gold pen, I began making notes. Spring in Italy, summer on the French Riviera, fall in Spain, winter wherever warmth called to me. No schedules dictated by ungrateful children. No Christmas visits to people who mocked my life's work. No more sacrificing my happiness for those who saw my generosity as weakness. The clock on the bedside table showed 1:55 a.m. In 6 hours, the travel consultant would help me plan adventures I'd postponed for decades. In a week, I could be boarding a flight to Rome. In a month, I could be sipping wine in a Tuscan vineyard, telling stories to people who might actually appreciate them. I leaned back in the chair and looked out at the city lights, feeling truly free for the first time in years. If you liked this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.